Chris, welcome to Build with DIMO.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, Chris, you're the founder of Coverage Critic, and you're one of the first public applications to be built on top of DIMO Data. And I'm excited to have you on Build with DIMO today with my esteemed colleague, Yevgeny. And we're excited to talk to you about this use case that we've been chatting about for a couple of months and finally have out into production. And so for the audience, why don't you just first give us a quick overview of what Coverage Critic is, the product you're building, and the mission that you're on here?
Yeah, basically I started this website, Coverage Critic, because I was frustrated by the wireless industry. So every network in the US, they claim to be the best network, but like figuring out the truth there is hard. And just like even making sense of a given carrier's plans and policies can be really confusing. So Coverage Critic is my attempt at building a better resource for consumers.
Awesome. And so what are the resources that are out there for consumers that are looking to solve this problem of what cell coverage should I purchase? What carrier should I give my money to every month? And why is Coverage Critic better than the alternatives?
Yeah, there's surprisingly few resources out there, which is really what like took me by surprise when I first started building this thing. I think one of the resources a lot of people turn to is just like the coverage maps published by the different networks. And it can be like really cumbersome if you're trying to decide between three different networks. And so you open up three different tabs and are trying to compare between each of those maps and figure out what might be like the best service at your house. And then there's also this just issue of accuracy where the networks all have an incentive to overstate their quality of coverage. And so I was trying to put everything in one place and hopefully make the same assumptions across different networks. And then as far as just like resources out there for helping consumers understand the different like plans and options available, my goal is to just be like a little more comprehensive, a little more thorough than the rest of the folks out there.
Nice. And I just ran a test on your site, which somehow I hadn't done before, but in preparing for this, I guess I'm not shopping around for a new cell plan right now, but I looked up my home city of Providence, Rhode Island, and I got Verizon. I'm currently an AT&T customer. No complaints there really, but the coolest thing to me as a nerd is this map that you get where you can show all of the different types of coverage, and you get all of this data on here today. Can you tell me about where that data comes from and how you're sourcing it, and then I guess how you convert it into these scores for customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the FCC, they collect data from the networks throughout the US, and basically that data, it comes from the networks themselves, and it's all modeled data. So they do some math, they know where the towers are, they estimate where will coverage be available. The upside of that is it's really comprehensive. It gets the whole US in there. The downside is it's just not terribly accurate. It's like an inexact procedure to begin with, and it's also a very new thing that the FCC is collecting that data. So stuff's not even standardized yet. One of the last rounds of data.
I'm drilling down here. Yeah, I'm drilling down on it, and it looks like the whole map is filled in, but there's these weird gaps around the borders of states, and then it does seem like the data is somewhat incomplete when you drill down and you try to figure out like where it's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done some like ad hoc testing to try and compare, are some networks submitting more accurate data than others? And it sure looks like that. And the FCC is very early in this process, and it looks like Verizon just like forgot to submit 4G coverage data for part of the northeastern United States on the first run. So it's cool to be able to have so much of the map filled in. But the thing that's missing here is more on the ground measurements of actual cell coverage rather than these estimates.
Got it. That's a great transition point right here. Tell me about the conversation that you had with Yev and maybe how you found out about DIMO and how that kind of plays into what you're building here.
Yeah, so I think the first interaction I had was with you guys' co-founder, Alex, and he asked me what I was up to, what I do for work, and I didn't expect that to lead to this like a really like useful partnership here, but he'd been telling me about DIMO, and then I tell him about how I'm making these maps of cell phone coverage, and he was like, "Oh, man, we have a bunch of cars collecting a bunch of cell data throughout the U.S." And I was like, "Oh yeah, a guy might be really interested in that." And one thing led to another, and now we're here today, and we've got this map that's based on data that DIMO's been collecting.
Yeah, so I want to show that off, and first maybe it would be helpful if you could give a quick overview of how DIMO is set up such that we can actually provide this kind of data as a network to a project like Coverage Critic and Chris and do that in a way that doesn't compromise user privacy and all of those important things about the DIMO network that the users have opted into. And I'll give a quick demo of the crowdsourced map, and we can talk about some of the data after that. All right, so give me the super simple explanation of how this actually works, how DIMO provides Coverage Critic and Chris with aggregated, anonymized data on cell network performance, and what's going on under the hood there.
Yeah. So there's about 7 to 10,000 of these out there today. This is the first generation DIMO device. It has a cellular modem, and as the vehicle is driving, that data is being collected based on its ability to connect to different cellular networks. And then we partner with a streamer, which is another Web3 project, where we're able to actually create a firehose stream of this data. Going through the whole flow again, user is buying these devices. They are opting in to this aggregate data firehose for cellular coverage. And then as the data is received, it is sent over to Chris to be shown on the live map.
Okay, so I'm on Streamer's website right now, and I see a DIMO Weather Hub, which I guess is just the public data stream that's available. So there's all of this weather data that's being collected by DIMO vehicles in addition to the cell coverage data. And then I search for the cell coverage. It looks like it's private. So I need to pay in order to get access to this live data. But Streamer's basically publishing a decentralized feed of DIMO data, and you can either make it free or pay for it. In the case here, Coverage Critic is paying for it, and that allows them to fill in this map. And I'm going to pull up the map here. We saw the map that was based off of the stale, questionable data that's being provided by the carriers to the FCC. And I'm going to pull up the map that is made up out of aggregated DIMO data. And Chris, why don't you walk us through what we're seeing here? This is, New York. We have a fairly dense amount of users in New York City. What kind of data points are we getting in here? And I'll drill down and show one thing that jumps off the map to me here is that on the previous view that we had, we didn't have any of the signal strength from each of the carriers here. And it looks like you're loading in some additional data, which is cool. Tell me about that and what's underlying all of this and what's going to be there in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So this map right there is built on about 20 million data points coming in from DIMO. And I'm getting another million or 2 million every day. So in a year, there's going to be far more data underlying the map than there is right now. So we should see
This
more
is
of
only
those.
2 weeks old.
It's 2 to 3 weeks worth of data. Yeah. So cool. I think that every 2 weeks, we're doubling the amount of data underlying the map right now. So this is very much like the first cut at what this will look like. So like right now, we see a lot of data around city centers, and then it gets a little sparser as we get to like more rural and remote places. But I think that over time, more of these further out, more remote roads will get filled in. Yep. And I'm really excited to see in the long run how we might be able to bring DIMO data to combine with the other information I have out there. So it could be really interesting to have a map that's like a hybrid of DIMO data plus this information collected from the FCC. So we could take the comprehensiveness of the FCC map, but then
this is the
accuracy
FCC map
of the
here.
DIMO data.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so when DIMO data is available, we could rely on that. And then in the spots where DIMO data is not available, instead of just relying on this estimated data from the FCC, we could actually calibrate a model that predicts. We look at spots where, let's say AT&T and DIMO both have data in certain spots. We can actually use that more reliable DIMO data to get a sense of how accurate is AT&T's model, and then use that to extrapolate throughout the whole US. So I'm really excited for the potential for a sort of hybrid approach there.
Cool. Tell me about these hexes. So I'm seeing in some cases the best network can differ if you're sometimes even just a couple of blocks away. Do you see people making purchasing decisions based on that granularity of information? I know how annoying it is to not have cell coverage in your house.
Yeah, that level of granularity, I think that, when it's somebody's house that falls within a spot where one network serves them a lot better than another, then there can just be really tiny little geographic differences that actually make a huge difference to the customer experience. I think that so far what I'm seeing is that people are making their purchasing decisions on a little bit more of macro scale questions. So a lot of people come to my website who maybe they live in a sort of small farming town type place, and there's just some big discrepancy between let's say maybe Verizon has much better coverage there than T-Mobile. I think that that is the direction where I want this product to head, where you could really drill down on like a very narrow spot. So like maybe your house exactly, and compare the quality of the different networks. And I think that like right now, if you're in like a farm field, the signal in one spot is going to be about the exact same as the signal 200 feet away. If you're in the middle of Manhattan, you might actually end up behind a really tall building, and those like finely grained differences really matter. So I think that is like the direction I want to head, is to be able to drill further and further down into specific areas.
One thing came across my radar a couple weeks ago. I come from the autonomous vehicle space, so anytime there's a headline like that from that world, I pay attention if it's something I haven't seen before. And one was the cruise fleet in San Francisco was overwhelmed and basically shut down a bunch of vehicles when the cell networks around Outside Lands, the music festival there, were overwhelmed with traffic. And I'm wondering if that's something that I guess you could use something like DIMO to verify events like that, or maybe predict them happening or measure their effects in the future. And the kind of like real-time aspect of measuring outages seems like a potential use case for this as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That could be like super cool. And I think that like, yeah, increasingly networks are seeing more issues with congestion. So you can, land in this situation where a phone or a DIMO AutoPie is getting a signal, but not really able to transmit data. So I think that, yeah, there's definitely like big potential there for being able to get a better sense of what kind of situation's happening when you have, a festival, a bunch of people in the same spot that are putting a lot of demand on the network. Definitely exciting to think about what could happen there.
Yeah, Chris, I know from my time working at AT&T for just a year, we had a big problem because we didn't know when a cell tower was even about to go down or has been down for several hours. Can you tell me how you think this data could also be used by the carriers to improve their networks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much real-time data. So if we can see that there's cars in an area, but they're not able to connect to a network, that might give them the feedback they need to make the corrections. Just for my product, the real-time nature of this data is really valuable, where that map that I've had for longer that's based on information from the FCC, that's all at a big delay. So it's always at least 6 months. They collect data every 6 months, and then it takes them a while to publish it. So it's always at least 6 months old. It's sometimes a year old. And these networks are expanding over time. It's not great to have a snapshot that's actually of the past rather than the networks today. So it's really cool to be able to get that real-time data from DIMO.
So right now you've got an old, very complete, questionably accurate map, and we're helping you build a new, refreshed every minute. I don't know, every 30 seconds. How often are you getting new data points in from Streamer?
I'm getting new data points. The rate is insane. It's actually like fun to visualize it if I have it my computer print out something every time I get a data point coming in. It's a ton of data points. The map doesn't update quite real time, but it's going to be like fairly regular updates. And one of the other things that I'm building out right now and is pretty buggy at the moment, but is a way to like actually visualize that underlying data. So instead of just seeing the average signal strength from each network, you can, if you want to get in the weeds, you can see like the distribution of different signal quality over many different observations.
So one other thing that struck me as I was playing around with this is the difference on, this is the DIMO data map that I'm looking at here, not the old FCC data. But when I switch between Verizon seems to be the most sparse, and T-Mobile and AT&T are roughly comparable, although they serve different areas. I suppose, that's a question for you. Why is that, and how do you see that changing in the future? Are there certain places on this map that we will never be able to get Verizon coverage on, or it will continue to fill in and smooth out over time?
It will definitely smooth out over time. One of the things is, so DIMO users today are powered by Twilio SIMs, which roam across multiple networks. And cellular modems, the way they're built today, have a tendency to stick to a certain network until they lose coverage. So in some ways, that feature is quite beneficial to building out this map, because the moment you lose AT&T coverage, you immediately will switch to looking for another network, and that will basically be the network that has the strongest coverage in that area then. Over time, this map will get filled in quite a bit more than it has today, but it will always be updated to the minute, not 6 months.
Yeah, sure. And I could imagine other ways. Obviously, it's not, the hardware devices themselves are not anchored to Twilio SIMs, and as long as there's a way to basically register the type of network connectivity that the device is using, then you can make useful insights out of it like this. That's cool.
Okay. So Chris, what kind of data are you getting from the stream today?
Yeah, so the information that's come into me is basically high level information and it's not tagged to a specific DIMO device. I'm just getting a data point that shows me the rough location, not exact location, of a vehicle with information that indicates what network it's connected to, and then just a couple metrics of cell signal quality. There's one that is the strength of the signal, another one that covers how much noise is in the signal, and that gives me like a pretty good sense of what the quality of the connection is at that car at that location.
So when I look on the website and it says AT&T minus 78 dBm, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's a measure of the signal strength, and it's a little technical, and I'm not sure that's like what everyone wants to engage with on the map.
I want it.
But I try to color them. Green is good, yellow is you'll probably have a connection, but it might not be great, and then red is you're probably in
one
trouble.
bar.
But yeah, so that's basically like a measure of signal strength, and if it's under 90, you're probably in pretty good shape. As you get higher, as you get above like 115 is when things start to get a bit dicey. I'm not sure how many people will like try to like dig deeply into the weeds, but I'm wanting to build out some more features so that the people who like really want to figure out all that information can.
Yeah. For users in my experience and just drilling down like super deep into the data here, I can imagine some people will just be like very interested to see this over time, because I'm digging into one of the data points where you have 81 observations from AT&T, 120 from T-Mobile, 26 from Verizon, and you're now putting them on an interesting histogram here. And I'd imagine you can get some nice time series data going eventually and show their performance over time. Demonstrably show people improving their networks at a speed that they can only tell you about in commercials. And this is really cool stuff. I'm excited to see where this goes. And I guess just to wrap it up, anything else you want to leave the group with? I'm sure we'll have you back on maybe in a year to show the entire world fully covered in perfect cell coverage data. I want to ask you about Starlink at some point. I don't know what you think about all of that stuff, but we can maybe do another episode. And I'll show everybody for now how they can get started with Coverage Critic. If you want to look up your location to see what phone plan would be best for you, I just did it, and it's really easy. And you should check this out. You can also view the coverage map here. And this is the really simple distilled down scores and metrics that you get over my slow home internet connection here. And this is awesome stuff. I'm really excited to see where you take it. And if you're a DIMO user and you're interested in how this impacts you, all of this data, Chris has a real business. He's building a great business off of helping people find better information on cell phone plans. And that helps contribute to DIMO users earning more rewards for contributing aggregated data, which is one of the exact reasons that we decided to build this, and really cool to see you executing on that in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, if anybody's like trying out the map after watching this, please send feedback my way. We're like the early stages today, and I'm like excited
I'll put your Twitter handle in the link for the show notes. And yeah, I'd imagine this won't be the last time we have you on, Chris. But thanks for joining.
We'd love to come back.